is Zambia's most important agricultural produce, as Melie meal, which is the country's staple food, which is processed from the grain. At the beginning of 2023, the country witnessed a threat to its food security when smuggling of Melie meal became rampant due to the high demand from neighboring countries. The unprecedented high demand of maize and Melie meal led to the distortion in the supply and price of maize and inevitably had a negative bearing on households in Zambia. With the involvement of security wings, government managed to curb the smuggling of maize. However, the country has witnessed instability in the Melie meal price, resulting in many citizens calling on government to address the matter, which has negatively affected households.
Unga muno mu Zambia ekyakulya icho tulya nombanga mwayikata kubunga nishi mwayikata kuli fyonse tuleeta otela ng'efirandiro omunandi kutira mwalireeta free education mwatwingishishako n'abaana abato ateekere pamayanda baalipwa training beekala pamayanda nombano yalyo liine taata tuleeta otela nomba ekikalamba bunga tontonkanyeni
tatakwa nakyo tulelandapo kyakwa tubunga bwena babweshe bantu ubunga emweo wa muntu ubunga ebupela amako kutya tubenga kakano mushipi beo tikutya baye kunchito mulandu wa bunga
chenza pempao kuri wa president watu mtengo wao washitireko reduce at least washitireko reduce so that it's balance ako but ganzi leko kazi balance ako
hapa nachoka mgula unga uli hapa ono nagula 285 mpamene manje unga tezogula pa 185 so kwa hizo bwera mvula tezogula pa zingati unga tezopempha kubuliwa president please wanganepo pankhani ya unga.
President Hakainde Hichilema has acknowledged the challenge citizens are facing in accessing maize meal.
Mutengo wa chimanga kuma farmers unali ungono tambera naga because mutengo wa chimanga unali ungono isetaikira mutengo wa chimanga uti ma farmers alime chimanga cha mbili wakalima chimanga cha mbili mutengo wa bunga tikonza nzamene mufuna ino niye kani amene mufuna mukakamba ati njala ni bunga sichoncho njala ni tani bunga. Njala ni tani bunga. Mange bunga buchoka kuti kumataba sichoncho manje mukankale na bunga kulibe mataba bolima ngati baleka kulima chimanga mukankale na bunga mwayiona story hapo ndiye pamene story ili hapa osanamiwa yayi nkani ya bunga njala ni chani bunga ni chani ngati stipasa balimi ndalama ya bwino mataba yonse azasira kuzankala mu mashops kulibe bunga olokasaka kamosi so vonse tikonzeretu chimanga mafama azilima kuti mafama alime chimanga ni kubapasa mutengo wa bwino na fertilizer na mbeu tambera naga so onse muntu ali na munda muno mu Zambia ali na ka plot uno mwaka tifuna alime chimanga akaliba chimanga chizapaka mutengo wa bunga uzankala bwino njala izasira.
President Hichilema has constituted a task force on food security whose major role is to monitor the flow of maize and Melie meal within and outside the country. The task force is chaired by the Secretary to the Cabinet, Mr. Patrick Kangwa.
Stabilization of Melie meal prices is based on on increased production. And for increased production, we have brought on board all stakeholders to ensure our production goes up. This includes traditional leaders. It also includes the church, mother bodies. It includes the public service workers. We've brought all of them on board so that all of them are party to the production. This production is key in that they all have a role to play. We want to know who in the local setup is in production, where are they, can the extension officers work with them, can we see their crop, can we visit their crop, All these will be roles to be played. If there's smuggling, the traditional leaders must help us identify where the smuggling is and encourage the people who would like to export to come to the front door and pass through the normal channels. Our ultimate goal as government is to increase production so that the maize we produce can be sold and exported officially by everyone and anyone, so that the farmers can get a good price, the millers have their sustainable margin, the retailers make their margin, and the surplus is exported. With that, our meal prices will stabilize.
During the opening of the third session of the 13th National Assembly, the President highlighted some of the measures government has put in place to stabilize the meal price in the country.
Our maize supply has come under immense pressure due to regional and global supply deficits arising from factors such as climate change, Madam Speaker, instability in some parts of our global community. Consequently, our food security has been impacted negatively, as evidenced by the rising prices of meal in the country. We are very aware of this situation, Madam Speaker. We are concerned about this situation, Madam Speaker, and are doing everything possible to stabilize the price of our staple commodity, food called meal. Measures will be seen and their positive impact fairly soon. Furthermore, we are putting in place, Madam Speaker, measures which will cushion the vulnerable in society as we restructure or secure solutions around this subject. Madam Speaker, in order to stimulate production of our staple food, maize, to address the supply challenges as we have stated above, we are putting in place the following measures, Madam Speaker. I'm sure you are interested to know. Number one, starting from the current marketing season, we have increased the purchase price of maize to 280 kwacha from 180 kwacha per 50 kg bag to stimulate production. Otherwise, we're going to run short of meal. Very important issue, because farmers were not making money at the farm gate. That's our response. We are, number two, establishing a credit window. Hear me out. We are establishing a credit window to support small-scale and medium, large-scale farmers in the public sector. Workers under this window in the public sector will be free to borrow, and any other citizen at a concessional rate, so we can increase production. Others that can access other financing mechanisms will also continue to do this. But we've taken this as a deliberate step to inject resources in the sector so we can increase production of maize and consequently assist us in stabilizing the maize or meal price, if you like.
Some stakeholders in the agricultural sector have endorsed some of the pronouncements made by the President's intention to help stabilize maize in the medium to long-term period.
So in the immediate is subsidy, that is going to work. But in the medium and long term, we need to improve productivity. We must plant early, we must manage our crop that we are going to have, and we need to increase the number of people that are engaged in agriculture to produce the maize that we need. And for us, we are saying, allow us smallholder farmers to produce for the open market, because it's bad manners for us as a country to say we are producing. Now we have little. We cannot sell to Tanzania, we cannot sell to Kenya or Rwanda. It's bad manners in business. It means we are sending away our business partners. So what we are saying, let the smallholder farmers make a little money by growing for export, while ZNS grows for our food, national food security. They have a lot of land and they can easily access fertilizer. They are a government entity, and I think that formula is a formula that can work. I know government.
Zambia Cooperative Federation Acting General Manager Godfrey Munyoro says the current maize production levels cannot meet the current demand, which goes beyond the country's borders. Mr. Munyoro has observed that high production of the country's staple food will lead to high supply of the commodity on the market, which will result in reduced prices. He has therefore called on Zambians to support government's interventions that are aimed at resolving the meal situation in the country by increasing production.
I think as a federation, we have always talked about productivity. You see, if you look at current statistics from Ministry of Agriculture, right now a small-scale farmer is actually producing about 1.7 metric tons per hectare. I think the previous season we actually had 3.2. So basically it has dropped to 1.7, which is about 34 bags. I can assure you, small scale of producing 34 bags, that's very little. I think what we need to focus on, even as a government and as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, is basically to increase productivity. What the president is talking about is basically the vision to actually stimulate agriculture. And if everyone can support that, I think we should be able to start getting the desired results. I think it's one area where we need to seriously actually focus some of our energies, because irrigation will help us increase production through productivity. And apart from that, I think we also need to focus on some of the regional markets, like Congo, Angola. We need to have a concerted effort put together by the government and the private sector so that we just map out how we are going to harness some of these markets.
The Food Reserve Agency, FRA, has also projected an increase in the production of maize driven by the attractive price of maize. Once the production of maize is increased, it is expected to stabilize the price of Melie meal due to high supply of maize.
FRA pegged the price at 280, and I think that was an opener. We wanted to reward the farmer, and this way, let the farmers basically take this as an opportunity other than a challenge. The prices that are on the market are a good incentive to stimulate maize production. There's a market that is yawning both locally and in the region, and these prices that you see on the market basically should encourage and motivate the farmers, especially the small-scale farmers, that they are able to make money and make agriculture as a business. So this should not see us as a setback, but I'm sure in 2024 we should be talking about massive production of maize with improved yields through the agricultural extensions that are extension services that are being afforded to the farmers, that indeed we are able to provide for ourselves and also to provide for the regional markets.
Once the production of maize is increased, it is expected to lower the price of Melie meal due to the high supply of maize. The Food Reserve Agency has also reiterated that it has enough maize in its reserves and is currently not supplying maize to millers, who equally have enough maize they're purchasing from the open market. The agency is, however, ready to offload maize if it will be required to do so during the lean period when maize becomes scarce on the open market.
At the moment, we are not offloading any maize to the millers, who are the private sector. So they're actually milling their own maize that they're actually buying from the market. So our interventions will only come, I think, during the lean period. And some of these interventions that the agency is expected to do include, for example, covering households that are basically vulnerable to food insecurity, and we do community sales in such instances. And in the locations that are basically, that could have had some misfortune in terms of the failure of the crop basically to come up to fruition. So we expect basically to do such interventions in those locations through community sales. And equally, we do partner. Should there be any disaster of nature, then we collaborate with the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit in order to see which vulnerable households basically can be attended to.
While the government has put in place measures to stabilize the price of Melie meal, whose fruits are expected to be seen after the 2023-2024 farming season, it has also taken into consideration the vulnerable who require immediate assistance.
Downside to it, we have the weak, the vulnerable, and the weakest. This government has taken necessary steps for the weakest to be looked after by the Ministry of Community. The Ministry of Community has that responsibility to look after the weakest by providing social cash transfer, fertilizer support program, welfare programs, and this government will continue monitoring what they're doing and look at those falling out of the bracket of affording to not affording and making interventions, social protection and social welfare protection for the weakest. That is how we'll attend to this.
Once the measures put in place come to fruition, the heavy burden of the cost of Melie meal will be lifted off the shoulders of citizens.